Oh, AJ. This is code name. My humble respects to your lotus feet, Arjuna Prabhu. Thank you. Amish, thank you. Omaganite Mirandasya Gananjanan Chalaka Chakshun Militamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dirati Swaparantikam. Vande Ham Shri Guru Shivta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sagana Raghunatvitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savarutam Parijana Sitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paransahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshpari Brishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhasya Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaura Pani Pratharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastita Deshatarne. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. And my sincerest respects to Angel. Thank you so much for coming, Angel. Grateful. So it is a glorious day as we read the Bhagavatam together. And we're going to focus on this verse. It's the verse that I wanted to tell Gaur Sharan before he left New York. I think I told him this verse. Well, it's not really, I didn't tell him this verse. I just told him this prayer that Srila Prabhupada prays. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyata Desh Tarine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. This mission of Prabhupada to make sure that we were really clear that there's a person behind everything, and especially in the Pastyata Desh, the Western world. So where Gaur Sharan is, if you ask somebody, is there aliens? They say, yes. Is there different type of beings? They say, yeah, what are you talking about? Of course, there's different type of beings. Is there a quote unquote God for the water? Of course. What are you talking about? There's personality behind everything. But in the Western world, welcome, Henry, Hare Krishna. In the Western world, it's very hard for us to understand that because we our tendencies, we actually have very deep-rooted atheistic tendencies. And Srila Prabhupada came Pastyata Desh to this Western world to help us with that. And we can observe our lives and we can see, oh, I get it. A lot of my problem comes from not actually having faith that there's a person behind everything, and that I should, in one sense, respect that. And because when I don't see a person behind everything, then I don't see people as people, I see them as objects. And that's the story of today, people as objects. And we have to be very careful with that. So Gaur Sharan, the verse numbers were, what were they again?
No.
I can't hear you.
9, 7, 8 through 26.
8 through 26. It's a long reading. You got it. Let's read it together. I'll share my screen. 9, 7, 8 through 26. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text number 8. Harishchandra had no son and was therefore extremely morose. Once, therefore, following the advice of Narada, he took shelter of Varuna and said to him, "My lord, I have no son. Would you kindly give me one?" Pop quiz, Gaur Sharan. Who's Varuna?
Lord of the water?
Yeah, the Lord of the Water. So there's personalities in the water. That's why Indians don't learn to swim. They know. Don't hang out with Varuna. No, I'm just kidding. They, in one sense, they know there's personalities that are associated with everything. The wind, Vayu, so Harish Chandra, he has a problem. And this is a different age, a different place. He goes to Varuna and he says, listen, I need a son. I want to be happy. I want to have an experience of being happy through a son. Would you kindly give me one? O King Parikshit, Harishchandra begged Varuna. This is what we do. We go to higher personalities and we beg them for what we want, isn't it? Or if we don't explicitly beg them, we internally beg them. He says, my Lord, if a son is born to me, with that son I shall perform a sacrifice for your satisfaction. Let's make a transaction. I give you what you want, you give me what I want, and then we're going to be very happy. When Harishchandra said this, Varuna replied, let it be so. Because of Varuna's benediction, Harishchandra begot a son named Rohit. Is it Rohit or Rohita? How do you say it? Rohit? You can say either way. Okay. Therefore, when the child was born, this Rohit, Varuna approached Harishchandra and said, hey, now you have a son. With this son, you can offer me a sacrifice. Remember the transaction we made? In answer to this, Harishchandra said, after 10 days have passed since an animal's birth, the animal becomes fit to be sacrificed. What he really said was, I'm not ready. After 10 days, Varuna came again and said to Harishchandra, now you can perform the sacrifice. Harishchandra replied, oh, when an animal grows teeth, then it becomes pure enough to be sacrificed. And what he really said was, I'm not ready. When the teeth grew, Varuna came and said to Harishchandra, now the animal has grown teeth and you can perform the sacrifice. Harishchandra replied, when all his teeth have fallen out, then it will be fit for sacrifice. AKA, I'm not ready. When the teeth had fallen out, Varuna returned and said to Harishchandra, well, now the animal's teeth have fallen out and you can perform the sacrifice. But Harishchandra replied, when the animal's teeth grow in again, then it'll be pure enough to be sacrificed. I'm not ready. When the teeth grew in again, Varuna came and said to Harishchandra, now you can perform the sacrifice. But Harishchandra then said, O king, when the sacrificial animal becomes a Kshatriya and is able to shield himself to fight with the enemy, well, then he will be purified. Harishchandra was certainly very much attached to his son. Because of this affection, he asked the demigod Varuna to wait. Thus Varuna waited and waited for the time to come. Varuna has time. He's not worried about this sacrifice coming to fruition. He knows. He's a powerful person. Rohit could understand that his father intended. Now you imagine, he's grown now. He was supposed to be offered right away. Now he's grown. Rohit could understand that his father intended to offer him as the animal for sacrifice. Therefore, just to save himself from death, he equipped himself with bow and arrows, and he went to the forest. When Rohit heard that his father had been attacked by dropsy due to Varuna, we made a transaction, you broke the deal, and here comes your dropsy. Does anybody know what dropsy is? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's edema. So he's got a problem now. His abdomen had grown very large. He's swelling all over the place. He wanted to return to the capital, but King Indra forbade him to do so. King Indra advised Rohit to travel to different pilgrimage sites and holy places, for such activities are pious indeed. Following this instruction, Rohit went to the forest for 1 year. In this way, at the end of the second, third, fourth, and fifth years, when Rohit wanted to return to his capital, the king of heaven, Indra, approached him as an old Brahmin and forbade him to return, repeating the same words in the previous year. This plot is really thickening. Thereafter, in the 6th year, after wandering in the forest, Rohit returned to the capital of his father. He purchased, what did he do? From Ajigarta, his second son named Sunashepa. Am I saying that right, Gorshran? Sunashepa? Is that a yes or no? So he offered Sunasepa to his father. Oh, well, how do you say it, Gorshan? Say it. You're just, the only reason I can't hear you is because you're on mute. Oh, your thing is not working. I understand. Therefore, he offered Sunasepa to his father, Harishchandra, to be used as a sacrificial animal, and offered Harishchandra his respectful obeisances. So let's recap. Let's make a deal, but I'm not ready to give up the deal. I'm not ready to sacrifice my son. So Rohit goes and he returns to the capital with his father. He purchases who? Ajigartha, his second son, named Sunashepa, and then he offers this person. It's a person. It's not a, remember, they're not an object. He offers a person to his father. He says, hey, listen, use him in the sacrifice. The plot's really thickening because we don't know who this personality is. He's a powerful person. Thereafter, the famous king, and I believe that's where the purport is today, purport by Srila Prabhupada, it appears that in those days a man could be purchased for any purpose. Harishchandra was in need of a person to sacrifice as the animal in a yagya and thus fulfill his promise to Vruna. And a man was purchased from another man for this purpose. Millions of years ago, animal sacrifice and slave trade both exist. Indeed, they have existed since time immemorial. Due to the problem that we'd see people as objects, not people. Thereafter, the famous King Harishchandra, one of the exalted persons in history, performed grand sacrifice by sacrificing a man and pleased all the demigods. Well, what does that mean? Did he just die in the sacrifice? You have to look deeper. And if you read it once, you don't see what happens. But if you just read through, if you go a little deeper, we'll see what happens. In this way, his dropsy created by Vruna was cured. Well, thank goodness his swelling went down. In that great human sacrifice, who was the chief priest? Vishwamitra was the chief priest to offer oblations. The perfectly self-realized Jamadagni had the responsibility for chanting the mantras for the Yajurveda. Vashista was the chief Brahminical priest, and the sage Ayasya was the reciter of the hymns of the Samaveda. This is beyond what we're capable of even seeing in this day and age. This is the Fab Four that got together. This is as good as it got, coming together to perform the sacrifice. Vishwamitra is giving his life to perform these. This is his duty. This is his dharma, to perform these great ceremonies. And he sees this young personality, Sunashepa, whose name means something very interesting. We'll get to that in a moment. And something happens inside of him. Text 23, King Indra, being very pleased with Harishchandra, offered him a gift of a golden chariot. Sunashepa's glories will be presented along with the descriptions of the sons of Vishwamitra. The great sage Vishwamitra saw that Maharaj Harishchandra, along with his wife, was truthful, forbearing, and concerned with the essence. Thus he gave them imperishable knowledge for fulfillment of the human mission. Maharaj Harishchandra first purified his mind, which was full of material enjoyment, by amalgamating it with the earth. Then he amalgamated the earth with water, water with fire, fire with air, air with the sky. Thereafter, he amalgamated the sky with the total material energy with spiritual knowledge. This spiritual knowledge is realization of oneself as part of the Supreme Lord. When the self-realized spiritual soul is engaged in service to the Lord, he's eternally imperceptible and inconceivable. Thus established in spiritual knowledge, he's completely free from material bondage. Sounds like Sunashepa as well. So Sunashepa means we find later, and when we it's in this canto, we find later the glories of the sons of Vishwamitra. Now he is the chief priest, and he sees this personality come in to be sacrificed. And this personality is being sacrificed to who? The demigods. And in our mind, these demigods they're pictures that we've seen, or they are statues that we've looked at, quote unquote statues that we've looked at. They're not personalities. For most of us, we don't have an intimate connection with them in that way. For most of us, it's very difficult to understand that these are actually people who are much more powerful than us. It's not hard for us to understand that there are people more powerful than us, but it's hard for us to understand the demigod's position, how powerful they are. That there's a personality behind the ocean, that there's a personality behind the wind. But I always love Raghunath's analogy of, if there was an ant on the keyboard and you're blowing air on it, what does that ant understand? What does that ant understand about the wind that's coming on it? It's just nervous. It's just scared that there's some force that's bigger than it, except for behind that is a person. So Sunashepa understood this, and he was actually very much dedicated to these demigods, and he prayed to the demigods, please release me from this experience in a certain way. And of course, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Lord. So Vishwamitra, who's performing the sacrifice, inside of his heart, he says, this boy is very special. And he adopts him as a son. So he's offered in the sacrifice, but in such a way that he's not finished. He doesn't leave this, but he actually takes him on. This is an adoption process that happens right there, because he's so enamored with the surrender of this young boy, Sunashepa. And it means, the name Sunashepa means that the tail of a dog is curved. Anybody have a dog? Dogs' tails are a little bit curved, and you can't just straighten the tail, because it's always curved just a little bit. If you try to straighten the tail, then what you actually have to do, and please don't try to do this, you have to break the tail, because it's this little bone. So the tail is curved. And what does that mean? It means that just like our consciousness should always be curved towards God, it always should be curved towards Krishna. So this name is significant, and his consciousness was always tuned to a higher personality. And he was, in one sense, rewarded for his surrender by allowing this amazing energy, these threefold energies, and the spiritual energy ultimately to envelop him as he went into what seemed like a absolutely atrocious situation. He ended up becoming adopted by the chief priest as he went into it. Now, that's another story in and of itself. But the idea that I wanted to share was, the only purport that we read was Srila Prabhupada saying that this has been going on since time immemorial. Slave trade and using people for purposes. And the problem is not, the problem lies in the consciousness. That's where the problem lies. It lies in the consciousness, because we see people as objects. And we say, Jai, I would never sell somebody for something. These people are really degraded. You don't understand, Jai. That's a whole nother level that I'm definitely not at. And while I agree that all of the great souls that have assembled here probably would not do that, we all have a little problem inside of the heart. And that's why, again, our respects and our understandings flow through Srila Prabhupada of understanding, how does this work? Pastita Deshatarine. He came to the Western world to do what? Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. To make sure that we understood impersonalism and voidism, and we understood there's a person behind all of this stuff. And what that means is, and this just happened last night, Sham and I are resting. Little Jai is there. He starts crying. Now, I've got a big day today. I'm starting early. I started early bird special, and I'm working all the way till 4:30, 5 o'clock. And I'll be earning today. So I'm quote unquote the husband in the situation when he cries, right? And she's the mother. She doesn't have a lot to do today besides take care of little Jai. what goes on in my consciousness when he starts crying at 12:30, 2:30, 3:30 in the morning? Am I seeing the situation for what it is, or am I seeing, oh boy, this might be an obstacle to my sleep? I'm assuming the identity, not a real identity, not my real identity. I'm assuming the identity of a father, right? And all of a sudden, and somebody who's going to provide. You see how this is playing itself out? I'm going to provide, so I need to sleep. She needs to do this. I need to sleep because I need to be fresh. And instead of saying, let me pause that story just for a second. You get on an airplane. Right? You get on an airplane and you open up, you sit down. If anybody's ever sat in first class airplane, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's such an intoxicating experience. Has anybody ever sat first class? Do you know what I'm talking about? How intoxicating it is? It's so foolish because we fly coach and we don't even really think about the first class people. But when you sit first class, you definitely notice all of the lesser beings that are walking by you. You know what I'm saying? You definitely notice all of those coach flyers as they walk by. You're thinking you're so special. Well, sometimes in India, Gorsharan, correct me if I'm wrong, in India, there's just open seats. You can just, maybe not in first class, but in other places, there's open seats, and you're hoping, please don't sit next to me. Right? Or maybe let's just say the train from Newark back to New York City. You're just hoping, please don't sit next to me. Okay. Can you just not sit next to me? And so we don't have papers now, but if you did have a paper, you'd open up the paper, or you put your luggage right next to you, in the seat right next to you. So you make sure nobody sits next to you because you're really clear about your boundaries right now. And every single personality that walks by you becomes what? An obstacle to your happiness. An obstacle. They become an object, don't they? They become an object. They're not people like you who has needs and wants and desires. That's why you're putting your backpack and your luggage right next to you, because you have a desire to have space. They're not people who want to have space. They're an object against your happiness. So we might not see them as slaves. We might not sacrifice them in a fire, but we immediately start to see people as objects. And when we see people as objects, we lose our spiritual understanding. We lose out on our spiritual consciousness. Rewind to 4 hours ago. Right? Is this an opportunity to serve, or is this an obstacle? Is this personality, this little angel personality, is he an opportunity to serve, or is he an obstacle to my happiness? Is he an object, or is he a person? And this is a great lesson that we have to learn, and something that we all have to wrestle with on a regular basis. If we stay in the proper consciousness, this is an opportunity to serve. The deeper the exchange that happens on behalf, not just to serve myself, but to serve my spiritual master, to serve Srila Prabhupada, to serve our sweet Lord. This is an opportunity for me to actually do service in a very unexpected way. What an intimate, unexpected service at 1:30 in the morning. What an intimate, unexpected service at 4 in the morning. Or what a disturbance. And you see how it's all it takes is the shift of consciousness, and life can become very, very magical and mystical and powerful. And this is where we have to give all credit to someone like Srila Prabhupada, who came and saw and performed and showed what that looks like. This is what it looks like to serve uninterrupted, unmotivatedly at all times. This is what it looks like to serve in that way. And this is what it looks like to come from a different place in the world to the Western world, and to show what does it look like to activate and engage the West. That's what he did. And so we're following in his footsteps. Srila Prabhupada, this is one verse that Arjuna sent me the other day, and I said, this is so right on. Because this is another place in the consciousness. This displays the consciousness. This is Srila Prabhupada speaking. He says, so we are not talking of very high philosophy that one has to understand Atma as the supreme soul or as the individual soul. Even those who are in a bodily concept of life, they can also dedicate the body to Krishna. How is it done? Well, Sridhar Swami says, but with faith, you can dedicate the body to Krishna, just like a man purchasing some animal. So here it is again, a man purchasing an animal like a cow or a horse. The animal dedicates the body to the master. Now I've dedicated this body, whatever you like, you can do. And this is what happens. This is why people love dogs so much in the West. They dedicate themselves fully to their owners. And that sense of power, that sense of love, that sense of connection it's intoxicating both ways in one sense. There's a complete surrender, and then there's the complete shelter if you have the right consciousness. Whatever like you can do. And actually that is done. The so-called civilized man purchases a cow, takes the milk as much as possible. But here comes the problem. Then he's going to turn into an object, isn't he? He says, then when they're not able to supply milk, or if it supplies milk, he gets nice price and sends it then to the slaughterhouse. So the person or the ability to reciprocate, or the animal and the ability to reciprocate, as soon as that's done, it's revealed that actually this is an object. And this happens in our consciousness. And we watch this even with people who so-called love their animals. As soon as it's a disturbance, it's finished. And then that reveals the consciousness that was always underlying it. That's not a person, that's an object. It's not helping my satisfaction. And I just heard from a wonderful sannyasi. He's no longer with us. It was an intimate conversation that one of his disciples recorded in a room, and he said it, and I thought it sums up this whole situation. He said, "You're wondering about your future." He was talking to some boys that were in the UK. He said, "You're wondering about your future." He said, "Your future?" He said, "Think like this, your future." He said, "Real thinking of future is, where am I going next?" And he said, the reality is your children will look at you and they'll say, "You are such a burden. You are such a burden to me." They will not say it out loud, but they will be hoping, "When will you go? When will you go? This is so difficult. It is such a burden." He says, the real future that you're looking for, he says, keep that in your mind, because the real future you're looking for is much greater than that. And I thought that was so appropriate. It was so right on with that, because I've seen that in my own experience, where people that were seemingly close, even inside of my own family, the moment that they're a burden, they become a real problem to someone. Maybe you've experienced that in your life. If you've ever become a burden inside of a family, well, then get away. You're causing me so much harm. And this is the consciousness that we as devotees have to really try our best to overcome. We have to overcome this material consciousness of seeing people as objects. The reason I brought this up was specifically because this Suna Shepa, when I read his story, I said, this is really powerful. He surrendered, and in his surrender, he understood his value. And he was given, in one sense, another chance by Vishwamitra. This is always going on. Sometimes we read these Vedic texts and we think, oh my God, this is so strange. What do you mean? There's slavery, there's all these things. But we can see that Prabhupada came to teach us a deeper principle that's always coming through this. And hopefully today, what we're able to take away is this principle that when we look at personalities for our people, when I say personalities, I mean dogs, animals, cats, your family, every living being. When we see them with the proper consciousness, we'll see, oh, what a wonderful opportunity to serve. And when we see them as objects, there will be a serious rub. There will be a serious rub in the mind and the heart. And it's something that we all have to wrestle with on a regular basis and look for those chances to not just surrender, but ultimately to serve. So thank you very much. We leave some time. Any thoughts, questions, or reflections on this?
Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhu. It's Andrea.
Hey, Andrea, Haribo.
Haribo. I just wanted to quickly thank you for just not letting us get lost in the details and getting right to the essence of this amazing, kind of crazy story that the Srimad Bhagavatam is sharing with us. Because there was a moment where I almost got lost in the slavery, human sacrifice. But then when you gave this phrase, which I'm rewriting because I want to just share with everybody I know, we can either see living beings as obstacles to our happiness or opportunities for devotional service. That's just such a gem. And I just really appreciate you kind of like keeping it to that so that we can, again, not get lost in the details. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. You are always seeing those children as obstacles for devotional service. So thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Haribol, Jai.
Hey, Jamuna.
Good to see you. Thank you for class. I'm just reflecting on something that Ranath Maharaj said so beautifully many times that completely relates to your topic and your theme. He says that we should use things and love people, but we land up loving things and using people. And the minute you start on this topic, I could just picture Maharaj saying that. And that's just like a tagline just to sum up everything here. So thank you for reminding us of that.
Thank you. Yes. You put it, Maharaj always puts it succinctly and perfectly. and thank you for reminding me. That is one of his great taglines. That's for sure. Yeah. We got to be so careful we don't deceive ourselves with that. We don't deceive ourselves with things and people. Anybody else have any thoughts, questions, or reflections?
I wanted to talk about like how lately I've been surrounding myself to so many devotees, and I could see and I could feel the pure love and the pure like intention to actually want to serve one another. And even through this teaching and you reading from such a sacred text, it's like now aligning me to understand why it feels okay now to serve Krishna. And even though I'm serving other individuals and I see them in pain or hurt, or if they assist in me in any kind of way by allowing me to express, the only thing that Krishna wants us to do is to really serve him through serving his children, and which we're all his children. And it's really blowing my mind how I don't listen to television, I don't listen to music anymore, because it's really programming me to like want to use or see people as objects. And now that I'm surrounding myself to the Bhakti family, it's just growing so much love in my heart. And I feel now I just think of Krishna and I see everyone, and Krishna is living in every heart. And my body just feels like it can be at peace, and my mind also at peace, and my son is happy, and my mom is happy, and everyone's happy. And it's just, so thank you so much, Jai, for this beautiful invitation in this class. And I really appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Angel. You said it right. We have there's that supreme person that's behind the whole thing. And of course, if you're a person you love when your children are served, you love when we're doing that. And the devotees are really our medium to be able to express our heartfelt appreciation and gratitude towards that supreme person. Thank you. Sorry I ended so early. I can't hear you. It just stops halfway through. Now I can hear you.
Okay, there's going to be background noise. Thank you so much, Giridhari, for a wonderful class. Like Andrea mentioned, and also Angel so beautifully put it, that point of seeing people not as obstacles but as opportunity to service was such a relevant point for me also. It really was touching to me personally in my present circumstances. And I also very much resonated with the point when you said there are going to be times when we might become burden for someone, or like somebody else can feel like a burden in our life. So it just is such a reality. And it's very important how we handle if we see others as burden, how we can change that attitude. It was a very helpful reminder. And when Jamana Jay said, I also remembered once there was a Bhagavatam class and was a very siren was going on outside the door. It was like Bhakti Center, like a very loud siren was going on. And we thought, oh, the class is being disrupted. So after and Marge actually kept quiet completely throughout as much as the sound was there, as long as the sound was there. And after the sound subsided, he said, oh, we all see it as a disturbance, but it is life and death for someone. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. So that kind of changed my viewpoint about sirens, because every time in the late night, there's like a very loud siren or something. I'm like I used to get really, especially coming from Eco Village, I was really disturbed when there's a loud noise in the night. So after I heard him say that, it really changed. Even I would get irritated. I would okay, I would remember that and think, okay, maybe somebody else is having an emergency. I just have to learn to sleep with this. So yeah, thank you for a good reminder of that principle. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for reminding me of the sirens of New York. And and really, yeah, those are calls, opportunities to serve. And the rub is, right, Gorsharan, the rub is that we have an experience where there's a tangible experience where we can put down, we can take our luggage away from the right side of us, and we can say, imagine you saw a couple with a baby walking into the train, right? In selfish consciousness, we say, oh, I have two. I've got this and my carry-on here, please. But in proper consciousness, these are personality. They're all connected to Krishna. There's somehow, some way they might be in distress, looking for a wide open seat. Who am I? I can just move this for them. And in that right mood, what the value of that act is incalculable. It's incalculable because it is an intimate, loving exchange in one sense, and I'm offering service. Now, of course, we don't do that so that we can tell, all of our friends how wonderful of a person we are, that we helped out a family or we walked somebody across the street or something like that. But it's an internal feeling. We have that opportunity to internally always connect in that way. And I'm experiencing it to a tiny degree of, I've never understood what it means to get a good night's sleep. I always slept well. What does this even mean? And there is sweetness in that exchange if done from the proper place. There is a not just a reciprocation, but a realization that comes that this is and this is what's being offered always. That's the thing. It's not just in the middle of the night. This is what's being offered always. I have a chance to move into that consciousness of, let me see the person behind this. Let me please the supreme person behind all of this. And it is so deep and so rich. And so I just pray that our consciousness stays there as long as possible. Now, Gorsharan, at 8 o'clock, do we open the curtains again? Is that what happens? So we're not sure at 8 o'clock what goes on. Maybe or maybe not. Okay. Well,
Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhu.
thank you, Hare Krishna. So that means I'm running as well. I have to run at 8 o'clock, but I'm very, very grateful to be with you all. Thank you so much. Haribo, Ananda Bihari Prabhu, Indira Devi, Shri Rupa, Yogeshwar.
Jai, I just wanted to say thank you, Jai, and everyone else who opted into this talk and gave their feedback and realizations. They were all really, really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Indira.
8 o'clock.
Yes, Jai Giridhari Prabhu ki Jai. Thank you so much.
Haribo. Thank you.
Everyone for joining. Hare Krishna. Thank you.